Today I'm in conversation with a very special guest, my good friend and former colleague Oliwia S. Oliwia comes from Poland and lives in Germany. I met her first when she came to India on a 6-month assignment. She loved her time here so much that she extended her stay before moving back. Since then, she has visited India several times to explore more of what India has to offer. Let's welcome Oliwia and hear her experience of living here and discovering how she successfully adapted to a place and its culture, both of which are distinctly different from her own. Hi, Oliwia. How are you today?
Hi, Jaita. I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm great, and it's so wonderful to see you, especially in sari. You look really
Yes,
chic.
thank you. I got it as a present. And I have no occasion to wear it in Germany. So I thought for today's podcast, as we'll be talking about India and my travels, I thought it will work well. So I dressed up today for your podcast.
That's so wonderful, and it adds a different flavor to the whole conversation, really. Yeah. And thanks very much, first of all, for making the time to be on today's podcast and sharing your experiences of your journeys through India and your intercultural encounters. I'm so glad to have you.
I'm also happy. I've been also reflecting on my travels. It's been a while, so it's been nice to also get back to some memories to see
Yeah,
what I want to share. So thanks so much. I really appreciate having being here.
my absolute pleasure. So, for a start, let me take you back to the very beginning. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, I remember that while you were interning, you were going to intern, you had a list of countries to choose from, and you decided on India. So tell us what inspired you.
That's such a good question. Everyone asks me actually, why did you go to India and what
Mm-hmm.
brought you there? And honestly, it was really nothing that I've really planned. It just happened to be that I finished my master's degree and
Mm-hmm.
I've been abroad in countries like closer to the EU, like I stayed in these times in Ukraine,
Mm-hmm.
Azerbaijan, which are also very different countries.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, okay, now what I can do is to stay in Europe and start a
Mm-hmm.
job, but
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I would be missing out on something. And as I've been also working in this intercultural field and studied
Mm-hmm.
something in this direction, I
Mm-hmm.
thought I really should go to a country where it's very different, right? And
Mm-hmm.
really expose myself to something new, to get to know a new culture.
Mm-hmm.
And my previous university had a collaboration. So yeah, I thought that I try it out
Yeah.
and go. But yeah, my family and friends were super shocked when I
Mm-hmm.
told them that I want to go to India.
Mm-hmm.
So it was super interesting to take the step. But I would
Wow.
say that this is what brought me there. Like really this hunger to get to know something new and
Mm-hmm.
to experience really a different culture.
Mm-hmm. So that brings me to my next question. So, as much as you were excited about coming to India, did you also have a little bit of doubt or fear in the beginning? Any
Mm,
apprehensions?
yeah, I think some. It's just like I knew nobody, So
Mm,
sometimes when you go somewhere nearby, a friend of a friend who's there, but I
mm,
really got to know nobody.
mm,
So I had no friends from India before, and
mm,
I've never traveled there. I had nobody close in my family who's been there.
mm,
So
mm,
there were for sure like some fears, like, oh God, how will I feel there, right? Like,
mm,
how do things work there, right? I had
mm,
really honestly no image how India looked like. It's been
mm,
also not a country I researched well before. So
mm,
I think when I knew I'm going, I started my research process. But for
mm,
sure, this was, yeah, definitely it involved some fear or maybe also like some uncertainty and this
mm,
feeling I don't know what will be waiting for me,
mm,
right? Like even a simple thing like how will be my future colleagues be like, right? Or
mm,
will I meet friends, right? Or
mm,
will I
mm.
will I be
Yeah,
alone? So
yeah,
a lot of these questions.
yeah. And I think you need a certain support system, especially in the beginning, no, to sort of settle in, yeah, with
For
your new,
sure,
yeah.
for sure. And I think this is like one of the crucial things, right? At the end,
Mm,
also you know yourself, you're well,
Mm.
like how do you say, a traveler by heart.
Yeah.
So knowing people in the country where you're going to or
Mm.
connecting is so
Mm.
crucial because
Yeah.
at the end, the traveling is about the people you meet and
Mm.
the
Absolutely.
culture you explore. So
Mm.
not knowing anything is, yeah, makes you feel uncertain. And
Mm.
I think I realized also that I know barely nothing, which is also
Mm.
sad, right? Because I never really learned it in history in school or stuff.
Mm.
So
Mm.
I had to start from scratch.
Wow. Okay. Okay. All right. What were your initial days like? How was the first week, or how were the first couple of weeks here?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a good question. I remember that I was so overwhelmed by all the colors and the
Mm.
flavors. I remember
Okay.
even, going to office, all the traffic is just so different, right? And
Yeah.
I remember I went shopping actually a lot because I really love, actually, as you see, I'm here also dressed up, but I found it
Mm.
so cool, this
Mm.
traditional attire. So I bought some
Mm.
kurtas and some
Mm.
colorful dresses.
Mm.
I would try the food. I'm a foodie and I'm also vegetarian. So some
Mm.
people might be shocked for listening to this, but I
Mm.
don't eat meat. So
Mm.
for me, being in Bangalore, there were so many options to try different foods. So
Mm.
I think I've been really immersing myself from day one into the
Mm.
culture.
Mm.
And yeah, luckily I had also a team that was super supportive. So my
Mm.
previous manager, also the team members
Mm.
were kind of
Mm.
really
Mm.
taking me under their wings,
Mm.
and making sure I feel well, checking in
Mm.
on me,
Mm.
um, sharing also some do's and don'ts,
Mm.
like, like some things I should be careful about,
Mm.
some areas where I should go. So I
Mm.
would say it was super helpful to have colleagues
Mm.
who really cared about me in the
Mm.
first weeks, because that made me really feel welcome as
Mm.
a kind of expat in a new country.
Mm. So you would have had a number of cultural shocks in the beginning. Tell us a little bit about that, and also about the aspects which surprised you, or which inspired you. Yeah, so there would have been
Mhm,
some aspects which were more of a shock, and there would have been
mhm,
aspects which were more of, an inspiration.
mhm. Yeah, I was thinking about this, and actually, a lot of people ask me that, like, yeah, how do you like India? Was this very shocking for you? And I have to say, I've never really had this big shock. Like, I mean,
Mm,
people told me when you go to India, it's either you love it or you hate it. I
mm,
definitely belong to the people who love it.
mm.
Otherwise, I wouldn't have
Yeah,
come back.
yeah.
I think there were just some different things. I mean, like even, I'm so used, for example, in Germany, right? We have the public transportation and everyone uses it, right? It's very common. You go to
Mm,
work with the metro or tram, you track it in the app, it's very organized. So I could always plan at what time I'll be there, right?
mm,
I
mm,
learned in India it's so different because whenever I wanted to meet with friends or so on,
mm,
you
mm,
can't 100% plan the traffic,
mm.
right? Like it
Yeah.
might be you get stuck for 1 hour and, especially some areas. So I think this was not a cultural shock, but something different in my day planning, right? I had to
Mm,
plan days differently. I couldn't
yeah,
meet maybe everyone on one day
yeah.
because going from one end of Bangalore to the other end, it was just not possible. So I
Mm,
think this was something. Then I think something positive that kind of positively shocked
mm,
me. Maybe we
mm,
can say it like
mm,
that.
mm,
I think the love for good food, like I think
mm,
really this care, like in cooking.
mm,
I think I'm someone I feel embarrassed, when I told people, yeah, what I eat for breakfast, because I
mm,
would just cook some porridge and put a banana
mm, mm.
and mixed it. And I was so impressed by how people really cooked, good breakfast,
Yeah.
really took time to make a
Mm,
good dosa or some
mm,
idli,
mm,
the
mm,
chutney,
mm,
and that it was really always a gathering to eat together. I really like that, like this
mm,
culture of
mm,
coming
mm,
together, eating together.
mm, mm,
I feel like this is something I didn't do so much
mm,
working here.
mm,
So this was maybe a positive shock.
mm,
Otherwise, yes, so many different cultures, right? And like, I think we will talk about this part a bit later with stereotypes and so on, I know.
mm.
But generally, I think having so many different festive holidays
Yeah.
was something I was really impressed.
Mm,
Um, And yeah, I mean, for sure, I share a bit later about this also about traveling. It is not always smooth and easy, right? Uh, but yeah, I think this were like the main shocks. I have to say, in my team and office, we were a small team, so it was quite easy get to work. Of course, there were also some cultural differences navigating, working in India, rather comparing to Germany. So for sure, there were some smaller, I would not call it shocks, but just that things were done differently. And I think it's also nice to get out. That's why I came, right? To get out of my bubble to things I'm exposed to see how it's done somewhere else. So this was super interesting also to learn new approaches and that it's, different. Yeah.
Oh, that's really fantastic. That's really fantastic. Because with most tourists, it's quite the opposite. Although you didn't come as a tourist, you were going to stay here for at least 6 months and beyond. But with most people, I think that initial negativity, I think that creates so many blockages and it just makes the experience even worse. No? So there is a certain sense of adaptability that one must come prepared with, expecting that things are not going to be what one is used to.
Exactly. I think it's about the mindset, right? I can't go to another country thinking it will be the same and compare it, right? So, and that's how I came. I had no clue, but I also went with an open mindset, right? I know like this is not Germany or Poland or any other country I've been. Things are different. And I wanted also to be open, right? And to not judge, because we don't know what's right or wrong, right? It's just different. And I think this, it's actually nice you pointed this out, but I think this mindset helped me because not comparing and being open, right? And to receive was really helping me and I think that's what I loved about it, that every day was just different because I was open to anything, and it just taught me a lot.
That brings me to the question of stereotypes. Yeah. So, as a first-time traveler, you would have had a certain image of India, a preconceived notion. Yeah. Whether you did it consciously or not, you would have had a certain image in mind. Yeah. My question is, how different was reality from how you imagined it? And are there stereotypes which you found a little exaggerated, like what people in other cultures think about India? Do you think that's also a bit exaggerated?
Yeah, a question about stereotypes. I mean, you know me, so I'm not a fan of stereotypes. And I think we talked about it. It's just that now we live in times where we are shaped by so many different cultures. We travel, right? We live abroad. So I think we also change as people. And I think maybe one stereotype was just me thinking that India is one country and everyone is similar, like before I went, I really didn't knew that each state is so different, that so many states have their own languages, right? I would be, even now people ask me, do you speak Indian now? And of course now I know better, right? I'm like, Indian doesn't exist, right? So there's so many different languages in India. And then I start to say, Malayalam and Tamil and Hindi and all the different languages. And I think my stereotype was for sure I wasn't aware. I thought it's one country and everyone has similar habits, food culture. And when I lived in India, I realized, wow, it's not true, right? There are so many different languages. There are so many different religions, right? Like, I mean, there are really a lot of different religions coexisting next to each other. There are also Indians who eat meat. So, people had the stereotype, I come from Germany or Poland, I need to eat meat. And I was veg. And I was surprised when I met Indians who love meat and drink beer, right? And that's where I was like, yeah, well, like it's all the stereotypes, right? So I think this was sometimes even a funny way because people thought I'm more Indian than them. And I'm like, yeah, but what is really this thing about? So I think this was sometimes then also safety for women. We will talk about this a bit later. But I feel like where I stayed, I felt always fine, and I know there are ways how I learned to navigate myself during the day. Yeah, I think these were like the main ones, like really that I had this image myself because I also didn't knew, right, that it's like one pot, like one generalized image. And I think this is also what a lot of people think, right? So they are not aware because it's also a very big country. And I feel like maybe there are some movies that show certain stereotypes. And they think it's all the same, right? And I think maybe this was my image.
Yes.
But I think also thinking about this, I changed my image so much since the last years that it's even hard to think, what I was thinking differently before. But I would say that this were like the main things. Yeah.
Okay. What kind of a mindset do you think travelers to India should adopt in order not to feel overwhelmed by the intense contradictions?
Yeah, I think we touched already a little bit upon this.
About it. Yeah.
I would say this open-mindedness to really be open to different perspectives, to a different culture, to different food, and also be able to try, because I honestly feel this way. You're really learning a lot. Like I think, for example, I've been invited to some weddings where I didn't know everyone, right? But I was invited, and it was such a nice experience to really meet new people and being so welcome and open to it that I don't know nobody, but I just go, right? And not being scared. And also, really, I was always also lucky, and I have to say, I met people from day one who told me that they want to meet me, and I'm friends until now, and it's been so many years. So I think I was also open to meet new people and form new friendships. And I'm also grateful that it was the same from the other side, that people also were open to meet me. And I think this mindset helped me to not be too close-minded, but to also meet new people, even when they are different. At the end, we are more similar than we think, right? In a lot of ways when it comes to values or I think this one. I think really this open mind is not being too scared, of course, being cautious, right? Still know your boundaries and limits. I think that's important. And what you mentioned before, I think it's good to start step by step, right? I always advise people. I know people who plan trips to India and want to do everything in 1 week, like, going to Delhi, going to see this and that, and going to all the big cities. My opinion, it's too much, because I think even visiting one of these places can be a big, difference, and a lot of buzz and a lot of new things. And I would always recommend to either go longer or do something more, let's say, like, just as an example, Delhi and Agra, but then do something going maybe to somewhere to the mountains and really enjoy nature, and also then locally meet more people, and other it can be really too much. So I would really try to break it more down.
Basically take things a bit slower, no? Because
exactly
things can change
more time.
anytime, no?
And you can also feel maybe exactly, and you can feel a bit sick maybe, right? Because it's different food and different things, and stress can be different stress, right? And I feel like giving yourself more time to adapt. And I was lucky in the position because I lived almost a year in India, right? So I had so much time to adapt and to let it sink in. But I think traveling for a short time, there's no time for this, right? So
absolutely doesn't help.
I was thinking about this question also for some time. I think maybe with dressing, I would say that I was dressing always kind of like, in kurta and long clothes. But one time it happened that I was invited to a friend who lived more on a rural area, and I had the top and I thought it was fine, but it was showing the shoulders, And at some point my friend told me, "Hey, Olivia, can you put like something on the shoulders, right?" And it was something I didn't do intentionally, right? But of course, in a way, I think also it comes with going to other culture. It's respect, right, to covering your parts. And for example, I would say it was always interesting for me because in Poland, showing belly, right, was something you would rather not do. Whereas in the sari in India, you can do it. But for example, showing shoulders was something, it's super fine. So I think the small things where I realized, I didn't want to do something disrespectful. Of course, I covered the shoulders. And it's the small things then you learn, right? Where can you wear what? So
Right.
of course, nobody was angry, but I would say this was like a little faux pas. And I think this can happen unintentionally, right?
Yeah.
That you are invited somewhere
Yeah.
and you don't know what to dress. And I mean, would you wear like in Berlin, I wear maybe to some occasions a mini skirt, right? And heels. Would I wear the same on it, So I think it's always ask also. That's what I learned. Hey, what should I wear? Or what would be cool? Friends even borrowed me clothes, right? So I think something for sure you can do. So I think this was like one faux pas that came in mind. Or yeah, I think like an example. And I think it's always good to also wherever you travel to research this, because also going to a temple or to different places, right? It's good to know before what to wear. Otherwise, it can be difficult maybe to enter, or also it's again a sign of disrespect, even you didn't want to be disrespectful, right? So I would say this is one faux pas that comes to my mind, and I think also a good example of where we should be cautious.
And also perhaps when you're visiting an Indian family with elderly members, you also need to be extra careful, right? With certain etiquette, the body language and being a little humble, that always pays off.
Exactly. Yeah, I think one of my fondest memories, and I was really thinking about it a lot, and I would say was really going to Gujarat. And this might seem maybe a bit weird to anyone who's listening, but when I was living in Bangalore, someone showed me the video of Little Poland in India. And I watched it and I found this so interesting because I've never learned about this part of Indian and Polish history. And I was started to read and even watch the documentary. Maybe we can even link it here somewhere. But there is even a whole documentary on this topic about Maharaja, who saved 1,000 Polish children during World War II. And they really stayed in a small town in Jamnagar, Gujarat. And I thought so interesting, also so beautiful, the story, and also the documentary. I was very touched, and I wasn't aware about this part of history before I moved to India. So I researched a lot, and then I had this plan. I will go to Jamnagar and go to this place where these children were held. And this seemed like a crazy plan, because I tried to research how to get there, and it didn't look that easy. I was like, okay, it's not like I'm taking a flight and I'm going to an institution. It was more tricky to get there because it was a super tiny town in Jamnagar. So I met some months before a friend, like a woman at a conference, and she knew a man from India who traveled whole India by bike. His name was Akram, and his story also inspired me. And Akram was a person who would always, if I call him, tell me, like I would be like, Akram, I want to travel here. Do you know someone? And he would always put me in touch with a woman who stays in this place. And I could, according to that, plan my travel. So he introduced me to a woman who stayed in Gujarat. I connected with her on Facebook. I was like, hey,
wow.
I'm a I moved to India and I'm so touched by this documentary. I wanted to ask you, as you are from Gujarat, you stay in Gandhinagar, like, is there any way you can help me to plan this trip? And she was like, listen, I will go with you.
Wow.
So it was so crazy because she didn't know me. But she was open to travel with me to this place and to explore this path. So I went to, and that's the thing, right? I was open, but I also knew she's someone I can trust because she was recommended to me by a person who's doing it. So I went to Gandhinagar. It's also a very beautiful city. I went to the some museums, and then we went by night bus to Jamnagar and really went to this place. I contacted these institutions. They got back to me that I can visit. We arrived very early, so we had to wait for some hours until it opened. But it was super interesting. They showed me around, and honestly, it was like only half an hour visiting this place. But I think it was the whole trip, like how to get there, organize it, and yeah, I was very touched, to be in the place, and there were pictures, and I learned also that there are still people also like trips organized from Poland. So I found this super interesting, and I think it was one of my fondest memories. Like the most adventurous trip, because it's not a typical tourist destination. No, it was really, I saw it on this YouTube and I wanted to make it happen. And with the right people, it worked out. So this was one story. And on the other hand, I was super grateful for the weddings that I could attend. I think like I weddings, Christian weddings, Hindu weddings, in different places in India. And it was so interesting again for me to see how different these weddings were organized, how, the traditions were different, the music, the culture. I'm always looking back to these topics. To one wedding, I thought I will buy the sari myself. So I bought the sari. And then one of my colleagues told me I bought like a grandma sari.
Wasn't colorful enough.
It was colorful, but she said, no, it's like a very old-fashioned pattern. It's trendy. I'm like, oh no. But then I just stitched a nice blouse and I combined it, so it looked fine. But maybe actually this could count as a faux pas. Also,
So did you eventually wear that sari, or did you?
I wore it to an event. I mean, I was like, no one will judge me, and I liked it. It was a pink one. I mean, I wasn't aware about the designs, right? But I was, I think it was this fond and proud moment that I went to a shop with the cloth and I picked it myself, but I thought I did a good choice. Apparently not. So I would advise, if you go sari shopping, go with an expert, with a friend who knows, because there is so much to know about the materials, about the quality, about the colors, and as I also learned about the design.
Are there any specific mistakes you would advise travelers against?
It's a good question again. I think like we kind of already partly mentioned parts of it when I talked, is really this travel, like really doing too much at once. I think this is what I observed. So really to plan the trip, to leave enough time to let things sink in, and also to meet people, to get to know the culture, not being only this tourist who goes from one, sites to the other, but some pictures, but really to see, okay, where can I also maybe stay, like in a like a place where I can also meet the locals, where I can talk, maybe where I can try homemade food, like a homestay or something, to really also talk to people, get to know the culture, and really see the variety. Then I think with food, it's a thing. I have to admit, I've been lucky. When I stayed 1 year in India, I had never a food poisoning. Like, I've been fine. I was maybe some smaller problems, but I've not really been sick. I don't know if it was because I ate a lot of homemade food and mostly veg and no meat. But I've been careful, not eating raw fruit or something uncooked from the street. I did eat street food. I love it. So, like some chats and so on, I would always try. But this is something I learned, right? Be careful with the water. So I would always drink like Bischleri water, right? Like the normal water from the supermarket. I did also drink filtered water. I was not this careful. But I think this is something people be advised really be careful with water. Also, maybe in the beginning, I use normal water to brush my teeth, but maybe when you're shorter there, just be cautious with the water. Also, what you eat. But I had, for example, a food poisoning when I went back last year for only some weeks. I had aloo tikki from the street, and and I thought it's a smart choice because there was also pani puri, like this balls of the water. So I was like, oh, I will not have pani puri because it was water, but I will take aloo tikki. And honestly, I was in the mountains, so I think pani puri would have been less dangerous as the mountain water is quite fresh.
Yeah.
But the aloo tikki on the fried oil, which was maybe the whole day. So I would say always be careful because obviously I was knocked out for some days. And if you are traveling for a short time, it doesn't make sense to be sick. Right. So I think even like sometimes street food looks so nice. If you have no time to get used to the different food, then maybe be careful. I would say this is a faux pas. Otherwise, I think really what I see a lot of people doing, also people who go for work to India. I was there also with other people who went there. I think is trying to keep the Western style in there, like going to very like places that are similar to the places we have, like in Europe. And I think this is something I avoided. I really wanted always to try the local places, to try the local food, to try the local music. So it was, I think, annoying for my local friends because they wanted to go, for pizza or to do this. I'm like, guys, I'm not coming to India for pizza. I will not have pizza in India. I want dosa.
Yeah, sure.
Going out with me it was for sure cheaper because I would be happy with, like a dosa or, Italy from Udupi or A to B, right? But I think I always tell people, right, it's the way how you really explore foods and culture. It's not when you go to similar places, right? Or when you go places where it's more local music or local traditions. And I think some people do this mistake that they stay in this international setup, which is nice. And I think it's good to try. But I think you miss out on getting to know the culture and people.
Absolutely. Because that's any day more authentic, no?
Exactly. Yeah. But I mean, I can understand the opposite, right? When you go out on the weekend and someone wants to try this French bakery, right? Because it's different. And I can also understand, that going out for the local people, try something new is also nice. So we found the balance.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a super important topic. And unfortunately, I think we, especially as women, always have to take extra precautions. And of course, I was nervous, right, before going because I didn't know how to travel and how to do it. Even I would say I traveled to most of the countries I've been alone. I would say one tip, and that's something we address, is really build your network and try to know people, right? I think it's crucial because for me, there was always this thing, okay, I want to travel to this place. How do I get there? Whom do I know? And how do I navigate everything? Right? So my learning, and I'm super grateful for Akram, who I met during my time in India, because anytime I traveled to a new place, I could just call him up and he knew in every place someone. And I met some amazing people through him, like Mehak, my friend who lives in Birbiling and hosted me also in Hyderabad, So for me, having this connection was helpful. So I always tried to know who lives there And then even I was not hosted, right? I knew, okay, there is a person I can call in case of emergency, right? Or I can ask the simple questions because the infrastructure is, not everywhere that developed, right? So I would be like, okay, I'm landing here or I'm coming by bus here. How do I get from here to this place? What's safe for me? Right. And for me, these were super important questions because I was always scared I'm going somewhere and I'm lost in the middle of nowhere. Right. So for me, I was really planning a lot to really make sure I know exactly where to go and I have an emergency contact number where I can also share my location. And secondly, I always tried to travel by day. So I don't get up and travel. I even do it when I don't know where to go. I avoid traveling by night when it's dark. So this is something I always did, like booking my flights during the day, reaching on the day so that I can sort everything out. But I was also traveling by night buses. I felt always fine, and there were always people who adopted me, kind of, who knew that was the nice thing. Everyone saw that I'm foreign, so everyone took me under the wings, so I was kind of never alone. Like when there was a break with the bus, a girl would be like, hey, there's now a tea break, want to join me? So I was really never alone. So I think this was definitely something that always when I felt I'm alone, I was not. And of course, it's still important to listen to your intuition, whom you can trust and not, right? So I think I was always still very cautious, okay? I put boundaries. Sometimes there are people who want to help you and you don't want it. So I think it's important to say it. And I think I really learned also to say, no, I don't want your help. Please let me. Yeah. And I really learned that. And I think it's very important to put boundaries. So I think this were like my bigger trips, like really building this network, researching very well where you go. And I did stay mostly in hostels. I really like the brand Zostel. And I have to say I was always super happy because they had female dorms and, it was always a place where there were people who can give you tips. Also, you meet other travelers. So I remember I traveled to Varanasi also on my own and I stayed in the hostel there and I met people and we would just go out in the evening together to have dinner and to do like an evening walk along the river and it's just so nicer to do it together so I would really recommend it and the quality of the places was always super nice. It was really made for travelers, very attractive. So I think I preferred hostels than staying alone somewhere because I just met more like-minded people who are also curious and also alone. So I think this was a good tip. So I can definitely, the hostels I stayed, I can recommend. Of course, everyone has to do their research, right? So also for everyone listening, please do your research. Also my experiences, right? I always tell people to be really take caution, take care of yourself, and always be alert, right? And I definitely, when I travel alone, when I am somewhere, I avoid going out alone at night. Yeah, I'm always I have my times when the sun goes down, I'm careful. And I also do it in other places. Yeah, so I think these are like my main tips. So really, yeah. I think, and unfortunately, we need to watch out for ourselves. But I think there are also so many other women who travel alone. So connecting and meeting is always super helpful.
Right. And while we are talking about that, there's one thing that just popped up in my mind. It's about the traffic. Now, crossing roads in India is not easy. Sometimes you wonder, would I be alive? Would I end up alive on the other side of the road? How did you navigate that?
I started to have fun.
Was it a special gesture you used to stop people?
I became very adventurous, even more adventurous than my Indian friends. I would be just like, hi, and just start walking through. I know in Germany, the thing is, you could never do it because cars go so fast and it's just, you can't. I mean, of course, people cross the street, but not when there's full traffic. No one would dare, right? So I think after observing the traffic from some times, I just started to be very confidently walking through the street, waving my hands, and cars would stop. But in the beginning, I feel you. I think it's again the thing, it's very new, right? It's something you would never do in your culture. So so yeah, it looks dangerous, and I know I mean, one should be careful. So of course, when I see people are driving too crazy, not. But the thing is, especially in Bangalore, sometimes traffic is also so slow. The cars don't go over, so you can do it. And also everyone knows, right, that there are people going through the streets, so everyone is mindful. But I have to say, yeah, it's definitely, sometimes I wonder how it still works. Like it's
Organized
definitely
chaos.
yeah, I think it's really, even when I took driving hours in Poland, they showed a picture of traffic in India, like the crossings, how crazy it is, and how people still manage to do it. And I'm like, wow. I feel like when people can drive in India, they can drive anywhere.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You said that, people would have tried to approach you and you had to send them away. Yeah. And you mastered that as well. Were there any phrases that helped you? Did you pick up any local phrases
Oh
to
God, I
communicate at the
think,
right time?
yeah. So I think something very simple is "nahi chahiye." I don't
नहीं
want. So
चाहिए.
and it's like one sentence, and I would always say nahi chahiye, nahi bhaiya, nahi chahiye,
Okay.
right? Bhaiya is like brother, so you can
Yeah.
tell it to.
Yeah.
So on the market, I would just say dhanyavad nahi chahiye or something like that, right? Or when I was bargaining with the rickshaw driver, I would say bohat mehenga. Right, it's very expensive. So I was like, nahi chahiye, bohat mehenga, right? And then I
Okay.
would just combine it. So things like that. But I think sometimes it's even nice, depending where you are, right? Like I tried also when I was in Tamil Nadu to say some Tamil phrases, right? Like vanakkam or
Right.
or to also use the local languages. I think in Bangalore, I remember like it was a very cute moment when I went to work, and there was the cleaning lady, and she would ask me uti ata. I think it's like, and didn't know what it is. And I found it so cute that you asked someone, did you have breakfast? Right? Like, I
Okay.
think it was something like that. To everyone who speaks Kannada, I'm sorry if I said it wrong, but I found it so nice that someone asks you if you had already breakfast as a hello. Like it's a very caring approach. Like, did you eat
Yeah.
already?
Yeah.
So I think this was super nice, like to know yes or no. And I think I always recommend learning some small sentences, just also to show. I mean, at least for me, it was a way that I could show, hey, I'm not like a tourist, right? I know the prices, I know what this and that costs, and maybe I'm also not interested in everything because I stay here, so I don't need, my fifth scarf or souvenir. I just want to take a look and enjoy, right? So I think this sentences, yeah.
And that would have definitely made a difference, and they would have empathized with you a lot more than otherwise, probably, because for many foreigners, I think this is one big challenge. But you can always navigate a lot better if you pick up a few local phrases, and then people cooperate with you a lot more
Of
than they
course,
would
yeah, and being
otherwise.
polite, right? At the end, I think there's always a way you can find common ground.
Mm,
A lot of things are also misunderstandings, right? So this helped, but worst case, always ask someone who can help you also,
Help.
right? If
Yeah.
in the shop to negotiate or to ask something, I think at the end, it's always helpful to have someone local, right? Even when you come to Germany, it's so helpful to have someone who can help you to navigate German bureaucracy because it's also difficult, right? So I think it's everywhere good to have someone who can help you. Is it, talking, or also giving you more context on how things are solved? Oh, such a deep question for the end, right?
Yes.
I think honestly, like one was really to embrace change.
Mm.
Like that to this openness. I think we touched upon the topic of being open-minded, right? And also to receive different perspectives, but really to embrace this change. I think this was something that taught me a lot. And also really this human connection, I really went there not knowing anything, and maybe being confronted with a lot of, stereotypes or, things people told you. And I think my life lesson is really, it's so important that we go ourselves to see, right? Because we might follow some, and I think especially in times with social media and the media showing us constantly one picture, it's always a perspective from people who are producing this, right? And I think it's now important more than ever to also go ourselves and see, right? And of course, I had good experiences, right? Other people might have different experiences. I think it always depends. But I think my really life lesson is that sometimes it's so important that we see ourselves, right? So that we can make our own statement. And of course, then it's based on our experience. And that's what I'm saying. Everything I shared today here, it's also my perception. It's what I saw. It was what I experienced in this time when I was staying there, right? Of course, I can't generalize it, right? I can't say this is how it is. It might be someone else had totally different experiences. But I think next to being open-minded, this really kind of putting your own picture together and making your own experience is super valuable. And I think this is what I learned for sure. Yeah.
That was really profound. So do not rely on a single story. There are many stories, different perspectives.
Exactly.
And
That's
it's
why I love,
everything.
That's why I love you for doing this. Love this format you're doing here, to really talk to different people and bring different stories, because this really shows also how much variety there is, how diverse we are as people, right? And this brings me again to the thing like the stereotyping, right? A lot of people told me in India, you're not like the typical German or the typical Polish. I'm like, yeah, because I'm also shaped by different experiences and cultures, right? And I think that's why it's so important to embrace change, to be open, to talk to other people, and to challenge your own beliefs, because we are also raised in a different, in school, right? You have this classes, you learn this in history, you learn this and that, but this is only one source of truth, right? And I think the more I read different literature, maybe not only Western literature, but different books, right? And I think it's so eye-opening to have also different influences. Yeah. So I recommend everyone to really also learn not only the history of your country, but also of other countries, and also read books from different authors, right? It's so important.
Absolutely. And it's so wonderful to also find commonalities, no? Because at times when you're spread across geographies, you have a certain picture of a certain culture. But the more and more you get to know, you see that actually at the very bottom, there's a deep interconnectedness. Don't you feel that? Yeah.
I think so, yeah. And it's also when you travel, I think as a woman who traveled a lot alone, I met so many people, who were like, even like to end maybe one story. I think it's really nice mentioning the last story, also about connecting. I remember in 2017, I was backpacking in the Balkans, like just, alone for 2 weeks. And I stayed in a hostel for one night. And in the morning, I think it was in Ljubljana in Slovenia. And in the morning, I met a girl and we had breakfast. And she was from India. And I was like, oh, I'm actually moving to India and I don't know nobody. Can we stay in touch? And, we really talked for 5 minutes. She said, sure, here's my number. Just contact me whenever you come to India and I'll host you, And it was really like a very last minute conversation we had. But we bonded because we were two women traveling alone in another country. And I remember I gave her some chocolate from Milka chocolate. And she gave me some ready-made poha, so I can eat it. And even until now, and we met in 2017, it's not 10 years yet, but I think over 8 years now. Yeah, right. We are still in touch, and of course, I visited her in Delhi, and she helped me to prepare for a wedding. She brought me a sari, and whenever I come to India, she's still taking care of me. I will be like, "Hey, I need I need to, I don't know how to get from here to there." She would even book me a cab, and we also traveled partly together this year. She came also to travel. So I think it's really nice at the end, you meet people with similar interests and also similar ways to travel wherever you are. We met really randomly there, and we had so many common interests, and we are in touch until now. And I find this very beautiful. Yeah. And it's sometimes so small moments that connect people.
That's something really incredible about solo travel, because I've also had some incredible encounters, with people and such deep interactions, even within a very short time. And then you form these friendships which last a lifetime. And it feels so good when they check on you now on Instagram or Facebook, or if you happen to meet them again, nothing like it.
And then I tell it my family. My family travels much less than me. and when I tell them, where I've been, who I met, they're always shocked, because they don't have this cultural exposure this much. I mean, we also migrated, so they are definitely also migrants themselves in another country and more open to this, but still they haven't been in other countries, right? So which are so different. So it's really interesting also to talk to them, and they're like, wow, like this is so interesting, or we didn't know that, right? And I really love to share this also with others, the gift of knowing more, or connecting people with each other. Yeah.
Fantastic. So, Oliwia, thank you so much. You brought some really profound insights, and I'm sure it has taken the conversation to the next level. It can be of immense benefit to those watching it. It's just not about coming to India, but exploring any culture, and I think it has been a great conversation. I have thoroughly enjoyed it. And hopefully, again, very soon, I can invite you to one more conversation, perhaps on a different topic on travel, and where we explore some of your incredible experiences of traveling across the world.
Always happy to join you. Thank you so much. And also for asking so good questions. I really had to think, actually, because obviously there is so much one can share, and what's really some things. And I still think I could talk for hours. So
yes,
it's just some very selected stories, or the kind of points I've mentioned. I think there is so much, right, to share on each place I've been. But yeah, maybe another time. Thank you again for inviting me.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Voyager. I hope our conversation on solo travels through India has inspired you to explore, embrace the unknown, and create your own unique journey in this incredible country. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories and insights.